I have a sweet deal for you today, and it involves this heart. You're gonna love it. Hi, I'm Di with Sister Chicks Quilting. Welcome to my channel today. I'm going to be working with these two fat quarter baskets. Can you guess what I'm doing? It's not like I didn't show you on the wall behind me. The first thing you're going to want to do is pull your fabric. And I've actually pulled quite scrappy. It's pinks and reds, and I think it's going to be adorable. I really think that a print is cuter than a solid in this quilt, but if you had the right solids, it would be very striking. So once you pull your fabric, you want 6-inch squares. And I'm going to put the same squares in the pile. I don't want more than 4 of each, and I may not even use all of those. If you cut 4 of each, you're going to have more than you need, and that's okay, because you know there's always another project, right? Go ahead and cut so you have 3 to 4 of each of your colored squares. And after that, I'll show you how to cut white squares, kind of the same way. Only with white fabric. Oh my gosh, I told you my secret. I'm not going to write or give you a pattern for this quilt. I'm just going to show you how to do it. And it's easy enough once you understand the concept, which I'm teaching. So I think you're going to be fine. I will include a cutting guide in the description below the video. So to get there, click on the little highlighted word more. And it will open up and there will be a cutting guide to cut this out. The first thing I did for my white was to cut 6-inch strips, and I cut them the width of the fabric. Now I cut a total of 9. 4 of them I'm saving. These are going to be the borders, and the other 5 strips I subcut into 6-inch squares. Here's my pile of 6-inch squares. I think it made 34 or something. I only need 32, maybe even 31. The next part of the video is the magic part. I'm going to show you how to cut these up. There's a lot of cutting in this video, so just put in a sharp blade and roll with it. You're going to love it. I know they're really sick jokes, but you'll love this. I'm ready to subcut these and to subcut my colored squares, and I am going to show you how I do it, because again, this is the magic. I'm going to teach you how to set up your cutting mat so you can easily cut these pieces to make them fit. You're going to need some washi tape. I'm using just a plain pink, a cutting mat. I'm using my small rotating. If you don't have one, it can really be on any cutting mat. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to cut over here because I don't want to wear out my lines on my mat. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my corner, and I'm going to make a corner so I can easily pop in a piece of fabric. You can do this anywhere on your cutting mat. Here, you just need 6 inches. There's my fabric, and I will use this corner to line up my fabric. The next thing you do, mark from this corner along this line. I want to go over 4 1/4 inch. And I'm going to take a piece of washi tape, folding both of the ends down so it's easy to peel it up. Then I'm going to put that washi tape right on the line, kind of center at 4¼ inches. I'm going to put my ruler down and make a little mark on my tape. This is 4¼ inches. There's the mark. I want to do it on the top side too, but I'm going to go from this corner. All of them go from this corner. So I'm going to go to the next corner. I'm going to set my ruler. I'm going to go I'm going to set it on this side. Sorry, don't want to be spinning your head too much. But I'm going to make another piece of washi tape. Count down to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would be the quarter. And I will set this right on the line. And I'm going to do that all the way around this block. You figured out what I'm doing, right? I'm going to do it on the next side too. You probably can't see my lines, but I can. This is what I'm going to do with these lines. I'm going to set my ruler on the inside line of my 4¼ marking. So here's the corner, 1, 2, 3, 4¼ and this is the inside right here, 1, 2, 3, 4¼ I'm gonna cut through that, pick up the tape, cut through this, pick up the tape. I picked up the opposite one. Then I'm gonna get out my Sharpie and I'm gonna make an arrow pointing to the cut side. Now these arrows, they should be opposite. One should go this way, one should go this way. And we're going to do that on this other side as well. Lining up those little lines. All right, and we're going to do the opposite. Pull off that one. Then I'm going to mark them with my arrow, always pointing to this nice cut side. Now I have a template, a 6-inch square. Lay your ruler, being very careful not to go over the line. Cut and turn, and then you cut. And this is what you end up with. See that? You do this to all 33 colored squares and all 32 white squares. Now I'm going to cut a couple at a time. In fact, I'm comfortable cutting 3, and I know that I'm going to put 3 of these pinks in my quilt and put them right there on my homemade template, and I'm going to cut them up. Turn it. Look at that. So I'm going to take these and stack them like that. And I'm going to go through and cut everything. But I'm only going to cut 33. I know I definitely want this print in my quilt. Okay, I better get busy cutting. I want to share a tip with you. This is it. When you cut the fabric out, a lot of the times you cut out a couple of pieces of 6-inch squares. And so you'll have one square down and one square up. We all do it, right? If you keep those in this position with the wrong sides in the middle, and then you take it to your mat, you're going to have a set that go one way and a set of pieces that go another way. This is one of the pinwheels, and this is how they're meant to be set up. So they do that. Isn't that cool? However, I have a big pile right here of all those mistakes I made. And really, truthfully, they're not a mistake. They just aren't going to work. So let me see if I can put these together. So you see the tall points on this one are on the left, and on this one, the tall points are on the right. So this one might spin this way, while this one might spin this way. I don't know what I'm going to do with this stack. Someone needs to make a quilt with these. Will it be you? I don't know. Now, when you're cutting the white ones, it doesn't really matter. So that's my tip to save you a lot of grief and fabric. This is what I call a layout quilt. I threw up my other quilt that's finished so I could have a picture to look at. So I could say, oh, there's 2 colored pinwheels, then there's a white, then there's 2 more colored ones. And that's how I do this quilt. What I'm going to do for you, there will be a link to a photo of it on my website so you can look at a quilt and lay yours out. Then when it's on the design wall, you can play with it and move blocks about. I'm going to get into the detail of how to put these blocks together, because some of you still might have your heads a little bit spinning, because I know, listen, I have made this quilt. This is going to be number 12 or 13 times I've done this pattern. I've even taught this pattern. And every time I do, I go to put a block up, because you really don't put them up in blocks. You put them up in pinwheels, and then this is the block. And I have to stop and think. So be kind to yourselves when you're making this quilt. It is totally fun to do, and you can do it. The first thing I do is keep my blocks in sets of 4. When I'm laying out this quilt, I lay out the quilt by the pinwheels first, because that's what my eye sees, is the pinwheels. Now, it doesn't matter that it's a sloppy layout and I have spaces and it's not perfect. This is just a design wall, and it gives me a good view of what I'm doing. I'm going to continue laying out this block like so, or this set of 4. I'm going to refer to these as pinwheels and the others as blocks. Then when the pinwheels are all laid out, you can start focusing on the blocks, and that's where you bring your white in. Or you can do your white as you go along. Let me show you. Can you see the blocks yet? This is a block, and I'm sure you can see it. It starts up here in the corner with a polka dot red to a white, down to a wavy pink, and then to a solid pink that's lighter, and then back. So this is a block, this is a block, and this is a block. Now, I hope that makes sense to you. With this quilt, yes, there's a great amount of cutting, and there's a great amount of sewing, but I think the reward is great. It's a stunner of a quilt. Just don't let the pinwheels be stronger than you, because, hey, they're just a piece of fabric. Before I start sewing, I'm going to make sure that you understand the blocks versus the pinwheels or the windmills. So here I have 3 pinwheels or windmills, 1, 2, and 3, but I have 8 blocks. There's that quilt math again. I have 8 blocks. So 3 pinwheels, 8 blocks. This is a block, this is a block, this is a block, and this is a block. Now that it's expanded, is it easier for you to see how they work? When I sew them together, I always start, and this is just me, you can do it however you want, set up your own pace, your own method, but what I do is I sew the top 2 blocks together by folding right sides to right sides, and then I sew the bottom 2 blocks together by folding right sides. I sew a seam down this way, and then I take them to the iron and press. Oop, sorry, my sleeve got in the way. We'll just discard this one. And then I press. I always have a pressing station close by because you're going to be sewing, pressing, sewing, pressing. Yes, you can chain sew a whole row across the top. I also do it that way. These are the top 2 rows. The blocks have been sewn together and trimmed. They're still they're still single blocks. I've just sewn together all of the four wings, 4 patches, 4 blades, whatever you want to call them, to make this block. This is how I pick them up to keep them straight, because if you don't orient yourself each row, you're going to mess up. I know, because I just messed up on this row. I pick up this end block, fold it over like so, all the way across. And I'm keeping that edge that I'm sewing facing the same direction, putting them right behind my other one, like so. Now here's a few tips. We're going to pick up these first 2, and this is the edge we're going to sew together. These are like bias cut, and they're not straight. So I am always going to match the tip. I'm going to match the tip and this flat edge together. I'm going to sew it right like this, but this flat edge, and it's so funny because I have to turn it over to sew. Again, I'm going to match this flat edge point right here. Just so you know, it's not going to be perfect. Look, there's some fabric here. It's never perfect because, well, I don't know why. They just never turn out perfect, but they're perfect when we trim them. Now that I've got them taken apart, I'm going to continue to keep them in order. I'm going to press these all the same direction. I usually press to the small side. And if you press them all to the small side, see, this is what I mean as small. This is a little bigger than smaller. I'm going to call this next part quality control, because if I try and see, I have my top pile and my bottom pile, and I think I picked them up opposite each other, that would be a mess. So I'm going to start with the top pile and put them on the design wall, because I don't want to unpick. It gets me every time. That's why I do the extra work. Then I'm going to take these blocks and flip them like so. 1 block, 2 block, 3, let's go sew these up, okay? So when you sew the block together, there's one of the narrow sides here and a narrow side here. And I always press to the narrow side. So there's my nesting point right there in the center. So I just nest them and stitch them up. They're not going to come out perfect because they're on the bias and there's 4 different blocks sewn together. I just do the best I can. I just kind of stitch right down the middle, fudge a little bit, and that's how I sew each block. So I'm going to nest those, match them best I can. This is a best you can quilt. And when you're done, it's going to be an incredible quilt. What you want to do is give them a good press now. The next step is going to be to square them up. You can mark your mat wherever you want to. I just don't want to cut the middle of my mat up. Cut these down to a 5-inch square, 5 inches exactly. And guess what? I do not have a 5-inch square. Here's my 5 inches here and here. I'm going to lay this down, making sure that all of the lines at the 5-inch are all covered up. See how uneven it is? It comes down and it juts out. That's the nature of this block. I'm going to use a 6.5-inch square like this and just do the 2 corners. I am just going to trim it here and here. You can flip your whole mat around or your block. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to line it up again on the 5-inch line. But again, you want to square each of these up to 5 inches. And there's our square. Also with this method, you can see there's hardly any waste at all. Now, you know I did a no-waste windmill quilt. Same exact concept, different size of block. I'm going to go ahead and link that below so you can check out my other video on the no-waste windmill. Sometimes your blocks will be barely to the line here and on the other side right here. And that's fine as long as they square up. This one is above the line, so we're going to pull it down a little bit. So this block is just barely at these points going to make my 5 inches. I'm going to finish these, and then I'll put them on the wall and I'll have another row done. I am all done. Look at this. With the exception of the last row right down here. This is the last row. I have it ready to square up into 5-inch blocks and I couldn't do it. I was out of energy. I'm officially on old people time. It's 12:30 and I'm done for the night, but I want to show you something before I hit the hay tonight. And you're wondering where these 4 blocks are. They're right here. One thing that I forgot to point out about this pattern are these points right here on the side. You know what? They're probably all off. They're not really the same. When I square them up, I never worry about the points on the side, or I guess I should call them the seams. I'm calling them points and they're definitely not. I just don't worry about them because they never match up. The only place this pattern matches up is here in the center. So it is very forgiving. It's super easy and fast to square them up because of that. So keep that in mind as you're making yours. For now, I'm going to put these back on my design wall and I'm going to get up early in the morning, square this last row up, sew this together. So this is what I did when I got up this morning. I always love putting this quilt together. It's a winner every time for me. And it's probably in my top favorite quilts. The only thing that this one needs now are the borders. Let me tell you how to do the borders. I'm going to measure up here 36.5. Remember that number. I'll measure it in the middle. Ooh, 36 and a half. And on the bottom, this quilt is 36 and a half inches wide. So I'm going to cut 2 of these strips to that measurement and sew them on the top. I'm calling them strips. I really mean borders. I'll sew the borders on. Here we go. I have 2 of the borders laid out together. And the first thing I'm going to do is take the selvage off. I'm going to take a big wrist, but I don't know if it's that big, otherwise I wouldn't do it. I'm going to measure them with this tape measure right here, and I want 36 and a half inches. I'm stopping this right on the line. It's just going to be easier for me to put my ruler on. So this is the 36-inch line. I'm going a half an inch beyond that line. There's my 2 side borders, reserving this fabric, which is very important. And I just used this as a weight so it wouldn't slide off my table. Let's get these sewn on. All right, this is the top and the bottom borders. I'm going to make sure my fabric has the fold side facing the quilt. I know that this border at 36 and a half inches matches the quilt size. So it is going right on, and it did. We'll make sure it's a good fit. Give it a gentle tug. And I'm going to make sure that I am not stretching this at all. Here I go again, the same process, going from end to middle. All right, close enough for government work. I'm going to take this to my machine and sew it down. So this is the piece I've attached. So I'm going to turn it around and put it at the bottom. Ta-da! Woohoo! What do you think? And then there were 2. You know, this is in my top favorite quilts. I actually have 3 quilts in my home made using this method, this little block, in all different sizes. I have another video called No Waste Windmill, and I'm going to go ahead and link it down below so you can watch that and learn more about this block because it's so cute. But the heart, I love it. It's one of my faves. Take a look at the quilting. In fact, I'll just show you on the back side. See this quilting? See this quilting? I don't have access to that pattern anymore, but I am going to quilt it in red thread and with hearts. Couple of things before I go. I want to show you my quilted quilt from last week. What do you think? Platinum cuddle on the back, and I quilted it in snowman. Don't you think that's adorable? I love how this quilt turned out. I thought it was so cute, but I wanted to show you because I got so many comments on it. I've got the green binding that matches the green border. I want to thank everybody. The responses were incredible on that quilt on last week's video. And a couple of people I want to thank. Pam Boone and 126 other viewers subscribed to my channel last week. I appreciate it so much. I knew you guys would step up. Thank you for watching and subscribing. And if you like this video, I would love it if you would subscribe if you still haven't yet. I hope I don't ruin your last name. I probably will. Christina Kirkillian, thank you for the super thanks. That was awesome of you. And sorry if I've ruined your last name. The engineer and I went over and over to make sure he thinks I have it right. Then Joan from Decatur, thanks for telling me I'm a cool chick. The engineer says he has to agree with you. You had a real cute comment. And then Kathy, thank you for the 3 cups of herb tea you sent. I appreciate it. One last thing. Do these look familiar? These are the ones that I did backwards. And it doesn't matter if they're backwards or they're forwards. They're still going to make an adorable quilt. I want one of you to have them. This is how we're going to play. I will put a link in the description below this video to a Google form that you can fill out with your name and address and email address. Then in a week, so it'll be Friday, I believe the 27th of January, I'm going to use a random number generator and pull a number, and one of you who signed up, I'm going to ship these to you. There will be enough to make an entire quilt. So I'm going to cut some more wrong ones out, okay? And then I will send these to one of you out there. And it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in Australia, you can live in the Ukraine, you can live in Europe, or you can live in the good old USA. You're going to get these in the mail. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate you. And don't you just love, love, love this quilt? In fact, because it'll irritate the engineer, it's going to be my love, love, love it Valentine quilt. Thanks for watching. Bye.